What's up, everybody? Adam Rank here from NFL Fantasy, here to talk about Zero RB Theory. It is a draft strategy where you do not select a running back in the first 4, 5, or 6 rounds, which goes against tradition. This doesn't mean we don't draft a running back, anything but. However, we just draft running backs later on when we're making our selection. The big theory behind this is that running backs are too volatile. Not that they're not valuable, they certainly are. There's a huge value for running backs, but there's a lot of volatility. Running backs get hurt often. Running backs have the sharpest regression. And of course, there is the dreaded running back by committee. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to opt for wide receivers. We're going to take a tight end, maybe Travis Kelce, maybe Darren Waller. So that's what we're going to be doing here. Now, anybody who espouses the zero RB theory will point to last season. Christian McCaffrey was the consensus #1 overall selection in fantasy football. He played 3 games. Saquon Barkley, another guy who went in the first round, maybe even with the second pick, he played 2 games. Ezekiel Elliott played an entire season, but he had one of the worst rushing totals, if actually the worst rushing total of his career, 979 yards. And anybody who's going zero RB will be like, well, this is why you don't want to throw away a first round pick on a player like this, where instead we could look back at some guys that were very good last year who weren't picked high, if at all. Let's take James Robinson, for instance. Now, this was a guy who finishes a top 10 fantasy RB. He likely wasn't drafted in your fantasy league. I mean, he was drafted in mine, but listen, I'm a professional. And you look at some of the other guys. Let's look at week 16, which is the fantasy championship week. The #1 running back was Alvin Kamara. Okay, that's fine. That's an outlier. But let's look at some of the other guys. You have Myles Gaskin, Samaje Perine, David Johnson, Jeff Wilson Jr., A.J. Dillon, J.D. McKissick. J.D. McKissick was not drafted in your fantasy league. And if he was, he wasn't going in the first round. Not even in J.D. McKissick's home league would you do that. And I'll be honest with you, I appreciate the practice. I lean towards the zero RB theory. You do have to realize that a lot of guys like Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, they were league winners for you last season. My recommendation, if you're playing in multiple leagues, give it a shot, because it's risky. It's kind of like being a golfer and it being a new golfer. You know what? You're not going to go out there and try to hit cuts and fades like you're Jordan Spieth. You just want to pipe it down the fairway. Similarly, if you're playing in one league, you're playing in your home league, draft a running back in the first round. But if you want some variety and want to give it a shot, try the zero RB. And as a matter of fact, you can draft guys like A.J. Dillon, Chase Edmonds, Zach Moss. Those will be some pretty good zero RB options this season. Just don't tell your friends that I told you. And by the way, if you're watching this on our YouTube page, first of all, thank you very much for that. Also, like and subscribe this page and tell your friends. And until next time, we'll see you later.